Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 1, Episode 4.
Today we have a very special guest, a hero to many, a rival to none, a most humble sage so many, including myself, look up to. He has journeyed across the world, capturing memories, inspiring others, and most importantly, bringing so many people together. The man with the biggest smile, everyone's best friend, co-founder of Ivy Creatives, Kyle Lehman.
I feel like we need a synth. So that we just get the bass drop or like the 808 right there.
Yeah.
That was next level. I did not expect that intro. Thank you.
I feel like it's more than deserving. Can you tell everybody who's listening a little bit about who you are, what you do?
My name is Kyle Lehman. I'm a professional photographer, entrepreneur, hustler, all of that fun stuff. Yeah, I started photography about 6 or 8 years ago, and kind of led me to where I am today, which is touring with bands and running an advertising agency and doing all of this crazy thing that is creative.
I own a skateboard shop, so it's pretty straightforward, but looking at what you do, it's like all over the map, literally all over the map. Because I think one of the first times I talked to you was when you were just about to go on some crazy big trip that maybe you can talk about that a little bit, because you've been traveling all over the world, right? You just got back on a trip from Portland and whatever, doing a bunch of crazy shit, seeing pictures of mountains and stuff. What was the first big trip that you went on?
Yeah, first big trip was pretty crazy. It was just after high school. I went to Thailand. So this church had called me up, and they had, known that I was taking pictures in school and doing that whole thing. And they asked me, hey, if we pay for your trip to Thailand, will you photograph and update all these like sponsorship records and make us a video to bring awareness about the current situation that's happening in Thailand? Whether it's the sex trafficking situation or it's the issues with kids not being able to, go to school or have housing, things like that. So yeah, that was my job. Photograph kids. It was amazing.
That's pretty crazy to think that a church would just like pay for a high school kid to do that and put that much faith in you to have that kind of an adventure. Why do you think they chose you for that?
I don't know necessarily why. I can't really say that, but my feeling is that I worked pretty hard in high school. Like, I wasn't very into school, and I was kind of a rebel. And at that time in my life, I had some very big issues with drinking and drugs and all of that stuff. And I had met the pastor's son through photography, through the internet, and he knew kind of what was going on in my life. And I think that they just saw somebody that, had some talent and was going through a lot of issues, and they wanted to help me become the best version of myself.
Dude, it's impressive, because obviously you're younger than me, right? You're 25 or something?
24.
20. Holy shit, yeah. Yeah, you've done a lot in a short period of time. I had regular jobs before I opened my shop. It sounds like maybe you didn't, but what was the last normal job you had?
Dude, I had so many jobs, actually. First job was Chrissy Mountain. I started my first, I grew up on a farm, so my first job was actually doing farm work with my grandparents.
Right, because you're up by Ladysmith, right?
Yep. Yeah. And then once I was actually able to get a job where they would pay me and I was on paper, then I did ski instructing, snowboard instructing. I built terrain parks for this snowboard hill, everything, rental shop manager, event coordinator, did all that stuff. And then after Chrissy Mountain, because that was only seasonal, I worked for a factory. And I was a material handler, so I just drove forklift around all day and skirted around.
That was when you were, 18 or something?
Yeah. Used all that money to save up and buy a whole new camera rig. Bought the dopest camera at the time, brand new iMac, all the software. Moved down to Milwaukee, worked for this rapper named Wave. Yeah, that was gnarly. And then Wave started kind of blowing up, and moved to Atlanta, got signed by Yo Gotti, and did this huge thing. And I had an offer to move down there, and I didn't want to take it. Actually, crazy story, Bon Iver, Holocene was playing, and there's a line in there that says, "And you're in Milwaukee, off your feet." And at once I knew that I was not magnificent. And being with a rapper, I thought that I was magnificent and the king of the world.
Yeah.
And when I heard that line, it was like, damn, I am not magnificent. So then I moved to Eau Claire, and I was like, I'm going to work for Bon Iver. And now I'm working for Boney Bear, so it's great.
God damn. So that transition happened pretty quick then.
Yeah, I mean, and then through that, I worked at a call center, worked at Menards, worked at Caribou Coffee, MacMan, which is an Apple store, Ambient Inks, merchandise. I mean, I always had a full-time job on top of full-time photography. For 6 years.
When did you finally cut ties with all that and become just straight up working for yourself?
December of 2018.
That's a lot more recent than I thought, because you've been traveling and taking photos and stuff for such a long time. I guess I just figured that was your full-time thing. Like, that was all you did for a long time.
No, I mean, I went on and off. I went through stages where I would quit a job and then I would hustle and do freelance photography and work, and I'd travel for 3 to 6 months, and then I'd run out of money, and then I'd have to get another job to get money again. So,
do you think that was like the biggest obstacle that you faced when you were, doing your own thing? Was it the money thing of like trying to find jobs that paid enough for you to do this without having to have another side job? Or like, what were some of the obstacles that you faced?
Obstacles was my own self. I was definitely scared to make the jump full time because, you have that guaranteed paycheck. Yeah. And that's incredible. I mean, that's awesome to have that comfort, peace of mind. And yeah, that was probably the hardest thing, is just my own self, my own scaredness.
Yeah, walking away from that. I know with myself, I opened the shop and it was 7 days a week when I opened, so there just wasn't a choice.
Yeah.
And for several months before I opened, I was working full time, selling cell phones at Verizon, and then a 12-hour day on my day off selling jewelry at Hellsberg Diamonds. And then I had one day to work on the shop thing.
Yeah.
And I was saving all the money, doing everything I could that whole time frame. But when the date came up, it was April 11th of 2014 is when I opened. Dude, the weekend before, we went to this big anime convention, like dressed up. My last day of work was like that Thursday before.
Yep.
And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to party all weekend, just have the best time ever. And then let's go. You know what I mean? Came back and it was a lot of work, but that was just kind of what you needed to do. You know what I mean? In my situation, I had to dive in 100%. I couldn't really test the waters with anything, but obviously it was worth it,
My industry is all about I honestly think it is all about who you know. And in my industry, I needed to know as many people as I possibly could. So me traveling, I put everything on credit cards. So I went through still struggling and getting out of credit card debt because I've been doing this thing for 6 years, traveling hard, maxing out credit cards, just to meet these people and these people that I want to work with and build that relationship. In the music industry, you have to be trusted and you also have to be around and you have to show that your beliefs are the same as their beliefs. It doesn't matter how qualified I am for the job. I can't just go and apply to be like Post Malone's photographer. I have to be in that circle for a period of time. So I had to pay to play, basically.
That's crazy. What were some of the like most epic people that you've met that you would say? Because like that rapper or whatever, but who are some of the people that you've met that you're just like, holy I met this person?
I met Tommy Pickles from the Rugrats.
What?
She's like her daughter is a huge fan of one of the bands I work for. So every LA show, I always saw her, and that was crazy.
Yeah, that's not what I was expecting to hear.
Yeah, no, that was, and then McLovin from
Superbad?
From Superbad. Yeah, he actually poured, I thought it was vodka. He poured tequila down my throat.
What?
Yeah. So, okay, this is crazy. I had an EC hat on, and he asked me what EC meant. I'm like, it stands for Eau Claire. And he recognized the name. And I'm like, oh, really? He's like, Eau Claire, like Eau Claire's festival? He's a big fan of Vernon.
Sure.
And he was like at the Sydney Opera House show and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, holy smokes, Justin Vernon. So we just had this big conversation about music and what's happening here in Eau Claire. And he had a bottle of what I thought was vodka in his hand. And he's like, here, take a shot. And he literally pours it in my mouth, and it's tequila, and I can't drink anything hard liquor. And yeah, it was bad. I spit it up all over the place, and that was...
Dude, I knew I was excited for this podcast episode because I'm like, what kind of stories are you going to have from all these places that you visited, all these people that you met? I feel like I've met a lot of cool people, but you've met a lot of cool people. I'm excited. This whole thing's going to be really cool.
Yeah. I met some really cool people too that aren't necessarily like famous. I met people who changed my life.
Yeah.
I met a homeless dude who literally made me rethink everything that I was as a person, and gave me like massive amounts of fulfillment and understanding of what my purpose here is. I mean, there's there's been some amazing people.
Well, you can't leave me off with it. You have to tell me about it now.
I was really down, man. I was sad, going through some pretty tough times, and sitting at this coffee shop, and this old man comes up to me. He's ripping a cigarette, and that's all I ever saw him do was rip cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he just started, having a conversation, and he asked me if I was okay. I'm like, no, man, I'm really struggling right now. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life. I'm broke. I don't have enough money to like fix a car. I don't have a job. I'm sleeping on couches. I don't really have a place to live because, touring, I can't pay for rent at an apartment at that stage of my career. And he kind of just like gave me some advice to change and to like hit it hard and to hustle and to get back on the horse. And
it's cool. You have to be open to, I think, looking at things in different ways. That's one of the cool things about traveling, I think, is you can see the lifestyles of different people, what works for them and what doesn't work for them, their views and all that type of stuff. And everybody's an individual. So it's cool that you can look at what other people are doing and then kind of incorporate the best, you know what I mean? The things that you agree with, you can incorporate new things into your life. So I think people who get to travel and meet a lot of other people, they grow much faster, I think, into themselves.
Who have their open mind to understanding different people's lifestyles and traveling. Because it's really hard. If you're going to be an asshole in travel, or if you're going to be stuck in your own ways, like you're not going to make it very long, as far as like length of time spent out on the road. So yeah, definitely having that open mind is, of course, it's a really good concept that you brought that up. Now I'm like thinking about that. I'm like, yeah, like that's another thing. I've been very receptive and understanding. And, if somebody's on the road, if I'm with a band and that band is participating in an act that I don't necessarily agree with, or something is going on, just being like, it's not my thing. Hands off, you know what I mean? Just, makes sense.
Absolutely.
I'm all about it.
So let's get to Ivy really quick. You invited me to come to your like private opening thing, and Ivy is downtown Eau Claire. It's like the newer business thing that you and Alec Phillips have. But it's a lot of things, right? It's a venue, it's a recording studio, it's a agency, it's all kinds of stuff. But how did you, I guess, what inspired you to create Ivy in the first place? What's your vision of what this magical beast is?
I always wanted to have a studio, and I always wanted to have a team. And as my career continues to grow, I need a team to finish these projects. Being a photographer is not just taking pictures.
Right.
Once you start getting into the next tier of work, you need to have creative direction. You need to have people on set to actually help you build these sets and move them around really quickly. You also need people to talk about licensing and selling the work and all that stuff. And I couldn't do it alone. I was extremely exhausted. And at the time I was working, my last job that I've ever worked for was for an agency. And I just didn't like how things were being run. I didn't like it at all. And I said, you know what, I could do this. And the company, they didn't necessarily go out of business, but they had to restructure and kind of let their whole creative team go. And I walked over to here, which was Ivy at the time, because Alec had bought it to try to make it into a recording studio.
Sure.
And I'm like, hey, dude, I need a desk. Can I rent a desk from you? And he said, yeah, sure. And then I asked him what his vision of this place was. And he said, well, I kind of want to like make a bunch of creators here and have like this creative space for people to work out of. And then we sat down, we came up with co-working as like the concept and the model that we were going to follow. And I think in like 2 hours, we shook hands and we're partners.
Wow. When do you find that special somebody, man? I mean, they ignite a fire in you and you just see it. I mean, that honestly, the first time I met you, and this is really cool to me anyways, to see you kind of grow through this whole thing, I could kind of tell that there was something there, and I didn't know what it was. There was obviously a lot more beyond just that service of introducing yourself as like, hey, I snowboard and I take pictures.
Yeah.
And as time goes on, I've learned so much about you. Like, oh my God, this dude is this like gem in the rough that I wasn't even aware of because he was fucking covered in soot. And then you brush it off and like, you're something really, really special. But it's cool that when you can have those connections with people and they seem to just like, I don't know, they have a lasting effect on you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm constantly inspired by you and what you're doing, everything with the board shop, like your style, the way that you carry yourself, the way that you like walk into a room. And I mean, you have like this light and this glow about you that's so personal and it's awesome. And the cool part is that like, there's people in our community that are doing really good things. And, skaters, they always have that bad rep and all that stuff. But what you're doing for young kids and helping to keep them out of trouble. Or like, you know what I mean? And the same thing, like you can have a young kid come into the shop and sit down and sit there for 3 hours and have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
and
all the time.
You being a mentor like that to somebody who may not have a good family life, or, you know, their family struggles with alcohol or no parents or whatever their thing is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're like that safety net for them. So that's freaking awesome.
Well, I appreciate that. All right, so talking about traveling, that's one of the things I'm like so interested in talking about, just because I absolutely love to travel, and I was such a scaredy cat going into the first time that I left the country. I never did. My family didn't really do that stuff. And what happened for me, which is kind of hilarious, this kid came into my store, and I'd always wanted to go to Japan. You know, I studied all 4 years of high school. I studied it a semester in college, and I was always that weeb who watched anime and was just like, I always wanted to go there, right? And I always thought it was just kind of something that was never going to happen. And this kid came in and he's like, yeah, I'm so excited. I just booked my trip to Japan. And he's like, you know, just turned 18 or whatever. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And he goes, well, you know, I figured I worked so hard through high school that I just deserve it. So I booked my ticket. That's my gift.
Yeah.
And I'm going. I was like, oh, man, you, are you serious? You think you've worked hard? I was like, you don't. No.
Yep.
Off. Nope,
Yep.
I'm going. So it was literally that day I started looking at Travelocity, and I'm like, whoa, this is actually not that crazy.
Yeah,
like, this is, it's something that I can make happen, you know, not immediately, but I can make it happen. And I ended up booking plane tickets like a few days after that conversation. You know what I mean? That's like what it sparked me to finally fucking do it. But that's one of the really cool things when I talk to you, because shit, you started traveling when you were super young. You never had that. I don't know if you just weren't scared or it just was, you know, thrusted to you, but you've been able to travel all over the place, right?
Yeah. Yep. I've been to every single state except for Alaska and Hawaii, probably like 4 times.
Was a lot of that driving? Or
Yeah. A lot of it's driving. Now I get to fly, which is fun, but I personally like driving a little bit better because flying, you always get delayed and you're sleeping in airports and it sucks.
Yeah, I've definitely had that happen. So going back to that, where are some of the favorite places that you visited? Because I've been to Thailand before. Thailand is cool. Japan still, maybe it's because it's the first place I ever really went, you know, as a big trip, but that holds kind of a special place to me. But what about for you?
Probably within the States, this is going to be crazy. Everybody laughs at me. I love Lincoln, Nebraska.
Okay.
I love Lincoln and I love Omaha and I love Des Moines. Those are kind of like my favorite spots to go. There's just Des Moines has got some, incredible energy. I don't know what it is when I go there, but it is incredible. Like the record shops are great. The people are great. It's awesome. It's so nice and genuine human beings. And then you go to Lincoln and it's this beautiful like train town and it's very old and old school brick and the great coffee and like just the people. I mean,
right.
Yeah, it's awesome.
All right, this is going to be impossible for you to answer, and I knew this going into it, but you've taken millions of photos, I'm sure, by this point.
Yep, like 350 to 400,000 a year.
Gnarly. If you had to pick out one photo to frame and put it in my shop, because this is one you're really proud of and you really enjoy, which one is it?
The selfie of my face that I took 4 minutes ago. Oh, no, I'm not that self-absorbed. Well, it depends. Like, it all depends. There's a lot of great work that I've done, and there's a lot of photos that I am very proud of. Right now, my big one that I'm proud of is the one that is hanging out here in Ivy. This like big picture of like some metal shavings in the dirt. So I photographed a pipeline operation. Mm-hmm. So they were putting a pipeline through West Virginia and a bunch of protesting and all that stuff. But there was this one section of the pipe where they had to cut the pipe. And there was all these metal shavings just like laying in the earth. And the clay was so like orange. And it almost, basically it looks like a robot exploded on Mars. And it's just awesome.
We're going to have to take that file of that photo and put it up on the page for this so people can see. Because I'm excited. I'm going to check it out, obviously, right away after this.
I shot it on a medium format camera that was like $13,000 and just for the camera. And I had to actually upgrade my insurance plan because I didn't have enough insurance. I had to have like $30,000 of rental coverage on my insurance.
Wow.
And yeah, it was nuts.
With working for yourself, right? With being self-employed, a lot of people, I think it's hilarious and it's true, but a lot of people say, man, you are living the dream. So I say that frequently when people say, hey, how are you doing? I say, living the dream, man. Mm-hmm. You know, just hanging out. it's a job. Like, people for some reason don't attach to that. They just think like, oh, you just hang out at a skate shop all day. Like, no, I don't just hang out at a skateboard shop all day. I have so much shit to do. Like, what about ordering merchandise? Do you not realize how much time it takes to like order merchandise or price all of it or display all of it, upload it to my website? Like, there's tons of it, you know? But there's a lot of things that I really love. There's still that kid inside of me every time I get that box from UPS that it's like, it's Christmas. You know what I mean? I got $1,000 worth of skateboards in here and it's all mine.
Yep.
I mean, I'm just going to sell it. You know, I'm not going to keep it, but I get to have that and it's like super, super fun, right?
Yeah.
I get to create graphics and stuff for skateboards. I literally get to make my own pro models all the time. Mm-hmm. Like each year I have a graphic made for the shop, like boards. That's so cool.
Yeah.
What about for yourself? What are some of the favorite things that you have with your job?
Definitely being able to travel. I mean, you're catching me at a really, 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 really weird time in my life. You're catching me at a time where like we just are 6 months into launching this company. And then I'm also, very sick and tired and exhausted. And there's a lot of things that over my career have been my favorite things. But at this exact moment in time, I am just very grateful that I'm still alive. Like on Friday, I puked twice coming into work, you know, just like so exhausted and completely tearing my body down. And yeah, I told you today I slept till 6:30 p.m. And it's just, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of moving parts and a lot of work. And the reason that I am getting sick and the reason I am doing that is because everything that I'm doing, I love to do. So whether it's starting an agency, whether it's going on tour, photographing for bands or photographing food for a cookbook or all of those, running a company, managing a team, being a creative director, I love every single aspect about my job, my life. And the problem is because I love it, I can't say no and I'm burning out. Yeah.
I think, you know, as you mature a little bit in your entrepreneurship career, you'll kind of see that this is a common problem literally everybody has. Yeah. Because if you work for yourself, you're doing what you want to do. That's kind of the point, you know?
Yeah.
But a lot of people struggle with that work-life balance. And I've had that too. You know, when I first opened, I had 7 days a week I was working.
Yeah.
But now, dude, I put my foot down and I'm like, I want to be home to make dinner for my kids. Mm-hmm. No, I can make more money and I can do more things, but I'm going to work 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Because I can.
Yep.
You know, could I make my business more successful if I was willing to do other things? Absolutely. But enjoying my life and enjoying the whole experience is obviously the most important part. Yeah. So you kind of have to figure out how you balance those things. And it is very difficult to take a step back when you have opportunities come up because you're always going to have them. But you're going to have people reach out to you like, dude, you should do this. What about this? I mean, even this podcast episode, you could have just said, dude, I'm tired. I just got back from this big fucking trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do this a different day or whatever. But you kind of have to, you got to find that balance, you know, otherwise you'll get too burnt out and it won't be, you'll look back on the experience and be like, dude, I wish I would have smelled the flowers a little bit.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And we're going through that right now. Like, I'm definitely focusing on that. You know, I leave work at 6 and I don't really necessarily touch work when I go back home. You know, I cook dinner and I have a relationship with my fiance and I do things like that. But work-life balance, I'm actually taking that phrase and it's going to switch it. And I want to focus on like work-life integration and how to bring that stuff together. And, work is my life. I don't want it to be work and life. I want my life to be my work. Sure. And I want my life to be with my family. So I want to blend those two together so that it's not one or the other, you know?
Sure. That's a task. That's a monumental task, I think, to eventually get to. But
yeah,
I think
it's a different theory. It's a different theory, and I'm going to test it and see where it gets me. Mm-hmm. And so far, it's been pretty good, except for this last trip I was on. That totally screwed me.
Yeah. I mean, you just season in a little bit here and there. You know what I mean? Like, I bring my kids to my shop, and we hang out there.
Yeah.
You know, and then I'm kind of doing both things or whatever.
Yeah.
Or what I like to do in my free time is go skateboarding and stuff. You know what I mean? But I guess maybe it's because I've gotten a little bit older and I've been doing things for quite a while, but passions change, right? Like you come up with other things that you're really into at different points in time. And diving has become a big thing for me. And that's not related to my job.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
But I have to make time for it because that's something that I want to do and I value it and I enjoy the experience.
Yeah.
You know, and I hope that you can find a way to meld the two. but still be able to hold yourself back so you can just relax a little bit so you don't end up running this crazy marathon and be puking every day.
Yeah, seriously.
You know what I mean? When you're passionate about something, you see things differently than other people do. It's not just like a regular career to you, and you'll have ideas that people think are crazy if you told them to people, but you're going to do them, and then people will look at you and go, holy, what did you just do? That's so awesome. It's cool that we have the confidence behind ourselves to follow through with the crazy ideas that we have. I mean, even just look at like this podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I doubt I'll make money on this podcast. I have a full-time business that I run.
Yeah.
And I'm doing this because this is super, super fun. Most people would say, well, why do you want to do that? That's just a bunch of extra work, because it is a lot of work, especially the editing side of it. But dude, I'm having a blast. And after we're done with season 1 and people are listening to these episodes, I think they're going to go, yeah, I don't know why I doubted you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm stoked that you followed through with it and you changed my mind. Maybe I should start focusing on some other things, and I should start putting my time and energy into these ideas that I think aren't possible, because usually things are a lot easier than you think they are once you jump into them. Like owning a business, right? I told people I'm opening a skateboard shop, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, why would you do that? There's no money in that, or you can't. Skate shops never last with the e-commerce and stuff. This is going to be impossible. And I'm like, okay. You'll see.
Yeah, but if you build a community around your specific thing, it'll last. Photography in Eau Claire, our small city that we live in, there was not a market for commercial photography at all. But we brought together a group of people, built a community around it that valued it and shared the same beliefs. And once that community was built, it was just seeds that started growing out in the community. And they were like, whoa, there's like commercial photography. There's like advertising and all this other things that opened these marketing managers or these directors or these small businesses up to what the possibilities are now. You know?
I think, yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings me to the point of what I was going to ask next. One person doesn't do everything. That's just never how that works. As much as you trust yourself and you put all this time and energy into whatever, you have to be willing to work with other people to bring out the best in each other. For you, who have been some of the larger contributors to your success as far as your business goes?
As far as people that like work for me and work on projects, or like mentors, or?
I mean, either, but I would say like, who's had the biggest impact on you becoming successful?
Wow, that's a very good question.
So here's an example for me, right? When I was growing up, I used to hang out at the skateboard shop that existed, and it was called Underloud. And there's 2 owners, but the one that I hung out with most was Anthony Capadona. I was so inspired that I had a second home to go to, and it didn't matter. He didn't make a lot of money, didn't sell that much merchandise, but I went there every day after school, and I got to have this second home. And he doesn't know that I have a skateboard shop all these years later. But he was a huge inspiration as to why I created it in the first place, because I wanted to create a second home for people. I want my store to be a community hub, not a store. If I sell things, fantastic. That's how I make a living. But it's providing this, cool older brothers hangout spot that parents are comfortable with leaving their kids and can have all these really cool memories to look back on. This safe, awesome space. So he was really, really incremental to me.
Yeah, I mean, now throughout that whole entire story in question, I really think that it's Christie Mountain. I think that's the place. Ski resort, Bruce, Wisconsin. I hold the record for the most amount of times there in a single season. They were open 63 days total, and I was there 65 because I snuck in for 2. And yeah, that place changed my life. They gave me a place to work on myself and be individual, pursuing an individual sport, and then also the ability to create whatever I wanted to create as far as the parks and the rails and all the features and jumps. They just handed me a shovel and a rake one day, and they were like, why don't you quit complaining about how crappy the parks are and just build them? And I took it and I built it and I built what I wanted. And it was the first time somebody's actually traditional schooling, they always just yelled at me. And they always said, if you don't do this my way, you're getting a detention, or it was like this fear of punishment. And then going to Christie Mountain, where they're saying, look, there are no rules here. No one set the rule book on how to build a train park. Go out there, be creative, do whatever you want to do. Just don't kill anybody.
Right.
And that was it. That made me.
I think that's the most important part that you learn as you go through entrepreneurship is you're going to have all these different obstacles come your way that you don't know how to handle. You just need to believe in yourself and say, well, whatever, I'm going to do my fucking best on what I want to with this project, see how it turns out. And you don't have to go conventional route. And in fact, if you go the conventional route, you're not doing anything special then.
Yeah.
You need to incorporate yourself into it. And once you accomplish a few things, it's like when you clean up a junk drawer, right? You clean the junk drawer and now all of a sudden you're cleaning the whole kitchen, which turns into cleaning the whole house.
Yeah.
When you do one little project, if I make a graphic or something, all of a sudden now I'm looking at what do I want to print this on? What's the marketing campaign behind this? What kind of videos do I want to make to promote this thing? And it becomes like a much larger thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, for example, so everybody has their own individual goals, right?
Yeah.
So in a team sense, let's talk about the Ivy team here, 5 of us in production. Each one of us has our own individual process, our goals, and we're all trying to create something for the greater good of the team. Now, with Christy Mountain being, so young, I didn't recognize this until now, but, my individual goal was to build this park so that I could get better at snowboarding. And the team, which is all the other riders who are there solely to make only themselves better, we're not working on any team projects. They come back with this feedback on what they like and what they didn't like. And this communication and this problem solving through building a terrain park. I think that is the reason why I'm so good at running a team and managing a team now, is because I'm open to feedback and criticism, because my whole life I've been getting criticized and getting feedback on the things that I've been creating. And, it wasn't in photography or some sort of digital media. It was in building, shaping snow. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Well, it's just a life lesson.
Yeah, it was a great life lesson. And now I'm starting to recognize how that life lesson translates into right now in this moment.
I think it's rad when you take that first step in general, because a lot of people are just scared to do that. And that's what's, and you said that before about, right? Quitting your last paying job. Yeah. I think once you take that first step and just kind of feel it out and see where you can take it, you'll be a lot more impressed with yourself than what you thought, Mm-hmm. And look at this podcast again as an example. If I was too afraid to do it, I could come up with plenty of excuses why. I don't have an audio engineering degree. I don't know shit about it. The first episode I recorded with my laptop with a free program I downloaded on the internet.
Yeah.
After the first episode, I figured out, I need a little bit more of a script. After the second episode, I figured out, hey, dude, I need mic stands. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then even in this short journey so far, I've gotten to see the progression, and I'm really proud of what I have put out there. And I think if other people take that same mentality, whatever it is that they do like doing, and start taking those first few steps, they're going to be surprised and they're going to be motivated by the things that they do create.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are some of the accomplishments that you're most proud of that have happened because of your career?
Career-wise, there's 3 right away that I know exactly what they are. First concert was All Time Low. First very large tour. Okay, so I went to a concert, All Time Low, favorite band at the time. I said to my friend, I'm going to work for that band one day. 5 years later, I got hired to work for that band. It was amazing. Absolutely incredible. I said, I want to get to an arena tour. I said it years ago. That was my dream. Now I'm on an arena tour. And it took 6 years, 5 years to even accomplish those goals or those tasks, but I did it. And now it's like, I kind of reached all of my goals in the music world. And it's like, well, let's refocus and come up with some new ones. And yeah.
That's awesome. I feel the same way with my shop, right?
Yeah.
What I wanted to create, I kind of feel like I created. And now all of a sudden, I'm doing just kind of ridiculous shit for fun.
Mm-hmm.
With the 5-year anniversary of the shop, I wanted to rebrand what my store looked like. Not rebrand it, but make it what I envisioned when I opened. Mm-hmm. What I envisioned with the logo is a tree, like a skateboard with roots coming out of it. What I envisioned was a city overgrown by skateboards. That's just what we are. You know what I mean? We're growing in this community and you can't deny it anymore. We've taken over. And so the shop, I hand painted, each individual brick through half of the store. And then I painted trees on the other side. And then I put all this fake foliage and stuff with boards hanging. And it literally looks like a city that's overgrown by trees that grow skateboards.
Yep.
But at the same time, that little creative endeavor has really built the store's reputation on a whole nother level,
mm-hmm.
Or with this podcast, it's different and I'm reaching different people, but it's based on the same things and it's still networking. Like it's still growing. My focus for where I want to be, I just want to have fun at this point.
Yeah.
I've said it quite a few times to people when they ask me like, what's next? And I say, well, I know that I can do anything that I want to, but I've done everything that I wanted to. And now I just want to have fun, man. And whatever ways that I can make that happen. If it's doing a podcast and seeing if I can get a sponsor that pays enough money to pay for half of my plane ticket to fly and interview somebody else so I can take a trip, sick. Like that would be cool. I have the shop already built. I'm making the money that I need to. I don't really have to accomplish more.
There, those like capstone projects you do in like elementary school, or I think I did one in high school, and for some reason I found, they sent it to me. That's what it was. So basically, we did this capstone thing, and after you graduate college, then they like send you. So when you're 24, they send you what you had wrote down, and I wrote down a list of goals, and the reason why this is kind of crazy is because it was goals that I wanted to reach before I turned 25. And every single goal on that sheet, and I didn't even remember those goals that I had written down. Every single one of them has been accomplished. So I'm at the point now where I'm 24 and I've accomplished every single goal that I had set out to do when I was 16, 17 years old. And now I'm at this lull in this point where it's like, okay, what is the next goals? So my whole entire career is going through this massive shift and change, and I don't know how to talk about it. I don't know. It's the first time that I'm feeling uncomfortable and like not in control of what's happening. And it's super difficult. It's really, really hard. But at the end of the day, it's so fun to just be thrown into this situation where you're like, oh, what the hell is next? You know?
It's basically a midlife crisis for people who are entrepreneurs. And this happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, I dyed my hair blonde.
Yeah, for real. Frosted tips are back, yo.
Quarter life crisis. I woke up one day and I'm like, I'm going blonde.
But no, this happens to a lot of people, entrepreneurs specifically, that when you reach the goal that you set out to do, you do reach this point of like, well, shit, I put so much energy into accomplishing this one thing. I don't know what to do now. And it's a little midlife crisis. All of a sudden I start wearing Hawaiian shirts and I decide I want to just sit on a beach all the time. Yeah. And my goal now is how do I retire by 44? And I think I have it figured out. So that's where I'm working towards.
That's my goal. That's my goal.
Yep.
Mine was 45, but I'll take 44.
44, because that's when my youngest will graduate high school. So yeah. I'll be able to retire is what I have in my mind. But it's a common thing that people have. They reach this point where you've already accomplished what you wanted to, and that's okay. You just got to figure out whatever is the next thing. You don't have to be rushed either. You can just enjoy what you've accomplished for a short period of time and just kind of put the feelers out there of what is the next venture, and you'll find what kind of hits, and then you'll be inspired again, just like you were when you first started doing photography. Yeah,
I think that's where it's funny. I think that's where October is going to come for me, is that month of just, understanding, enjoying. I'll be out on a pretty large tour for about 2 weeks of that month. So it's going to be a good end of the road.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to be done. I think I'm done after that with touring.
End of one road, but opening up another one, right?
Yeah. I think it's time that I slow down on the travel and I fully cut ties with doing the whole music thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next venture, man. Getting back to what we were talking about before, having unique, things that you get to experience or whatever. I'll give you my example first, but I want to know what some of your favorite memories are from your journey that you've gotten to go through, because you've had a pretty crazy one. I like to ask this question with every guest because I think it's really inspiring for other people to hear why it's worth doing. You got to have this experience that only happened because you chose this career path, and it doesn't happen to other people. So my example that I'll give for this particular episode, because, I'm talking with you, is I was here for your grand opening, and I'm looking at the space, and my shop was turning 5 real shortly after that. I was like, this could be the coolest party I've ever thrown. And I asked you, I'm like, hey, would you have any interest in doing like a little party here or whatever? And you're like, yeah, let's make it happen. And in a few weeks, we threw stuff together, and we had over 100 people here at this party. We had, I think, 3 different musicians play. We raised a couple $1,000s. It was this like...
There was almost 200.
Well, there you go. Almost 200. There's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I got to give my little speech and, just hang out with all of my friends. And it's not necessarily the recognition, but it was such a cool moment to have all of these people that mean something to me together in one place celebrating what I've accomplished in my career.
Yeah. That
wouldn't happen in any other type of career. What about for yourself? What are some of your favorite moments that you've gotten to have throughout your journey?
Probably being recognized on stage by the band and being a part of it. That's always great when, I worked so hard to build this brand for one of these bands out in California, and just my last day on tour, for them to pull me up on stage and give me a hug and tell the fans how big of an asset I was, it was great. It felt really good. It validated it, and it made me feel that I was actually doing something that was worth it. And through that, there's been so many, like I got to go on the set of Scooby-Doo and hang out with Velma, and now we text regularly, and it's like this crazy thing where I get to like have this connection with Velma from Scooby-Doo, and it's weird, but we like each other, and it's and I don't know.
I'm sure you can go on like forever about it, and that's the exciting part. You know what I mean?
So much, man. There's so much.
Yeah.
One of the things I did. Okay, so to help me figure out and like make all this, every time something happens, I write it down. So I'm like not necessarily writing a book, but it could be a book already, because there's like hundreds and hundreds of Google Docs of notes and things that have happened in my life. So I can't wait. Hopefully when I do my first book, I'll be able to like incorporate all those stories in. That's the next goal, man, is a book. I need to do a book ASAP.
That's awesome. I wrote I wrote a book.
Self-published?
I just did like a little one for myself with photos from my trip to Japan. That was like a kind of a diary of sorts, but it was like 100 pages and it talked about my whole experience and stuff. And that's, people ask me like, why did I open the shop? Right. And a big part of the motivation came from, I watched my family kind of fall apart in a way. Mm-hmm. My parents were ready to retire, pretty well off, and we're looking towards that stage of life. And then all of a sudden, the politics change around it. They get huge pay cuts. My parents split up. My dad has a heart transplant. It is a whole show. Well, I have my first kid, during that whole time frame too. And I'm going through the corporate world of like, what is success to me? And I'm getting promoted. I'm younger than all the people that are working underneath me. I'm making more money than all of them. People are constantly telling me that I'm successful.
And you have tattoos.
I covered them at the time, but yeah.
Okay, yeah.
But I was wearing a suit and I was whatever, quote, successful, if you want to think of it in that way. But then I'm looking at my kid and I'm thinking, if I died tomorrow, would I be proud of what I've accomplished?
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that I was yet. And that was the biggest motivation behind following my passions, right? And opening my shop and doing everything that I wanted to do. Because if I die tomorrow, I want to be at peace with, I'm happy. I did everything that I wanted to do with the time that I was given. No regrets. I'd like each of us to give one piece of advice to leave our friends with. So here's mine. Everyone starts somewhere. When I opened my shop, I had such a small amount of inventory, it was laughable. For real, like laughable. But people could see the passion that I had. I believed in myself and others started to believe in me too. It took time and a lot of hard work to get to where I am today. Your vision may be grand. Your end goal may seem out of reach. But if you focus on doing your best with each small step, you will get there. Don't be scared. Take that first step, whatever it may be, and you will be very glad that you did.
Real talk, dude. Real talk.
Yeah.
That's right there. That's the praying emoji on Instagram. That's given to you.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Sometimes when you're in your career and you have all these different things that you want to do and you want to get to your goal fastest, the end of your goal, you are concerned with trying to like catch this big wave. And the problem with that is that waves that big only come up once in a lifetime, or only come up maybe once a year or every 5 years, depending on how the weather is. So once that wave is complete and you've rode it and it crashes down, you're left with just calm water. And how do you feel that thrillingness? You know what I mean? How do you sustain that thrilling feel that you had on that wave? You're just not going to do it from sitting on your surfboard, in calm water. So what I like to do is I like to think about hiking a mountain and how, every single step you're one step higher, and you always are gradually gaining higher in your career. And so many people are concerned with, having that big break or, all of that stuff, that big moment of defining a success. But I don't want that, because I want to be fulfilled for my whole entire life, So I'd rather just keep climbing the mountain. And yeah, that's what I think on it. That's my advice. Don't try to just ride those big waves. Just go for a hike.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.